Oh, absolutely. So, a couple of data points here. First of all, we haven't had this kind of first half of a year. I mean, this is a fantastic year. And for it to be an election year, which is usually more of a calm type of gains in the markets. I mean, the last type I just read was, 1928, leading up to the Great Depression, was such a aggressive gain in an election year. But another data point, and this is something that you're pointing out, is, it's the Magnificent Seven, right? You guys maybe have heard of those stocks, right? We're talking about Google. Alphabet is the parent company of Google, Amazon, Apple, Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook. And then there's Microsoft, and there's Nvidia, and there's Tesla, right? Those are the Magnificent Seven. And those companies have been really leading the charge for the gains in the market. In fact, in the first half, 60% of the S&P 500 was attributed to five of those seven. That was Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, and Nvidia. Tesla and Google kind of have been doing their own thing. Although Tesla, in just the last 5 days, has recouped a lot of its losses that it had in the first half of the year. But Tesla has been kind of the slow runner of those seven this first half. And then in this last quarter, this last 3 months, it's really been three companies: Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia, that have been 90% of the gains. And so there's this big divergence. We've never had this big of a divergence ever between like the best high flyers and the rest of the market. One of the things I like to do, and I've got my chart up, Sip, is take a look at the S&P 500. So everybody probably knows that the S&P 500 is cap weighted. That means that the bigger companies get more influence on what the S&P 500 is doing than the smaller companies that are in the S&P 500, right? Let me turn off my indicators here because I want to show you something. There's a symbol that you can plot called the S&P 500 equal weighting. This is if every single of the 500 stocks that are basketed in the S&P 500 were given an equal weight. And so that ticker symbol is SPXEW, SPXEW. And so now this is equal weighting. This doesn't really tell us much. I'm going to pull us back to a whole year, and I'm going to make it a line on close so that you can kind of see what I'm going for here. All right, so you kind of see what's happening. And if you give each one of the stocks an equal weighting, you can see that for the last 4 months, I mean, we've been kind of in a stall. But here, let me overlay the regular S&P 500 on top of this, and you'll start to see that divergence between regular companies and those high flyers. So let me go ahead and say add study, compare with, and the S&P 500. So now this purple line is the S&P 500. So while, all the companies have kind of been in a stall, which is, by the way, really good for us premium sellers out there, the S&P 500 has been on this gain, right? In fact, in the last 2 months, most of the market has kind of been on this slight downtrend, slight, ever so slight, whereas the S&P 500, led by those, high flyers like Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple, have been hitting all-time highs. So this is alarming a lot of forecasters, right? Because we've never had this big a divergence with the high flyers and the rest of the market. The rest of the market seems to be, flat, if not slightly down. And then you've got these 3 to 5 big stocks that have been, running us up. That's causing alarm bells because it's just showing yet again another weakness in the markets.